Okay, third and final trig video. Alright, in this last one, we're going to do an example. And so here's your triangle, and we're going to call this your angle alpha. And that makes this side your hypotenuse, this side is the adjacent side, and this side is your opposite side. I'm going to give you H with a value of 10 meters, and alpha is going to be 35 degrees. And your job, or our job, is to find adjacent and opposite. Okay? Now, since we don't have two sides, we only have one. In this case, we only have the hypotenuse. We can't use the Pythagorean theorem. So that leaves us with our mnemonic SOHCAHTOA. Well, I was given H, so that means I have to use one of those that have an H in it. So that means only sine and cosine utilize the H. So I'm going to go ahead and just find the adjacent side first. So that means I need to use the mnemonic CA and use this equation. The cosine of alpha is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And in this case, remember, I am trying to solve or isolate for A. Alright, so how am I going to isolate for A? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides by H. So I can get rid of the H on this side. And when I do that, it makes this go away. And then I'm left with H cosine alpha is equal to A. And then literally all I have to do is plug this into my calculator. 10 times the cosine of 35 degrees. So you should go ahead and try that, and when you do, you should get 8.19 meters. So I now have the answer to one thing that's missing. Okay? Now, what I need to find next is opposite. Okay? Now, I could go ahead and do this, and I could use the sine function and do exactly what I just did with the cosine. But that's kind of boring, and you've already seen that example. So now, since I have two sides, I still have my hypotenuse over here, and I now have the adjacent side. I can use my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So literally, as I said, we have the hypotenuse and we have the adjacent side. So now I'm trying to isolate B. Alright, so in order to isolate B, the first thing I have to do is subtract A squared from both sides. Alright, and when I do that, I get B squared equals C squared minus A squared. And then the last thing to do is get rid of the squared term by taking the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I end up with B equals a square root of C squared minus A squared. And what's left to do is just plug this in. So I'm going to get B is going to be equal to the square root of 10 squared minus 8.19 squared. And when you punch that into your calculator, what comes out? 5.74 meters. So you have solved for the last side. And we have completed our last example.